said, dog, you dog world, just better make sure they eatin'. I don't wanna hear about loyalty, cause we all got different meanings. You ain't picking up what I'm putting down, you better off just leaving.
Welcome everybody to another episode of the Outside Eye Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler. Hope everybody's having a great Friday. Today, we got a pretty jam-packed show. A lot of topics I want to cover. We got the Giannis trade rumors. OKC is, some people may say they're not looking too high. You got the MVP race. And then you got some teams in the East that I want to talk about. But starting off, I want to talk about the whole Giannis thing. It's pretty interesting. It's pretty funny to me because I feel like that Giannis throughout the past couple of years, specifically the last 2 or 3, he's kind of played like this humble international kid. I'm not gonna say played that is very may well be exactly who he is. I'm not taking that away from him or anything like that, but I feel like he's kind of been like humble international kid, didn't want to speak too negatively about certain topics, didn't want people to paint a narrative or an image about him, rightfully so, because the media has been they've been very nasty, and they could paint very bad narratives about certain players. Just look at Kevin Durant. So I do think that I understand why Giannis has kind of been the way he is with the media, but I think the past 2 seasons, Giannis, it's kind of like, I think he could tell that people are starting to realize, not necessarily that the jig is up, but like there's been a lot of rumors, specifically this past offseason, about Giannis wanting to move on, and nobody knew what was going on with him. And there's a lot of speculations, a lot of rumors coming from a lot of people. Some being negative, some being positive, whatever the case may be. But Giannis never necessarily came out and addressed it. He never, really stood up in front of a mic and said, this is what it is, this is what it's not. Granted, we are nobodies. We are nobodies. That's the reality. We are nobodies. Giannis doesn't owe any of us anything. But in my opinion, just my opinion, I think that I would want to clear up my name, because there was a lot of things being pushed about Giannis that may or may not be true. Nobody still knows. So if I'm Giannis, I would want to clear my name. I'm not what you guys are paying me out to be, So that's that's what I would do. I don't really see why you would want narratives and things to be pushed about you. Some people may genuinely just not care. I don't think that, if it was me in that position, I wouldn't necessarily care, because people are going to talk about you no matter what you do in life. They're going to talk about you negatively. They're going to talk about you positively. As someone who's going to feel neutral, or there's going to be some people who just genuinely don't give a fuck about what you got going on. So I think, but me personally, I would just clear it up, not to the point to where like it's bothering me, but just because you can't speculate and make rumors about something until, if I clear it up and say exactly what it is. Okay, yes, I want to know, I want to go to a new team, or, wherever the case may be, wherever the topic is at hand. In Giannis's case, we all know that he kind of wanted out, the past 2 or 3 seasons, because that team hasn't been constructed the best. Since their, championship roster, the departure of Drew Holiday and things like that. They bring in Kyle Kuzma, like, yo, Giannis, I promise you, nobody's gonna blame you if you request a trade. You know what I'm saying? So it's like they haven't brought the best talent around Giannis. And it's not like Giannis is an up-and-coming star or anything. Like, he's a bona fide superstar, top 3, top 5, wherever you want to put him, player in the league. Like, he's one of those players who, I'm not going to say he's a generational player, but he's an absolute superstar, bona fide talent. So it's like, for you to not want to build the best possible roster around him, it's crazy to me. You're bringing in Kyle Kuzma, and no disrespect to Kyle Kuzma, but like, what are we doing here? You know what I'm saying? So I definitely understand Giannis wanting to come out and finally say, I want a new home. Him and the Bucks are working. So in my opinion, I think reality is there's going to be a lot of teams dipping in, one seed, putting packages together for Giannis. But I personally think like there are only a very few teams that have a realistic chance, or, who will put together a realistic package that will attract the Bucks or in Giannis. Because I'm pretty sure, I don't think it's a terrible departure. I think that Giannis and the Bucks are going to be working together, and they're going to work towards somewhere that Giannis wants to go. Because no matter what the package is, or, what the team is, they're going to get the best package. They're going to get a boatload of picks. Probably going to get some young talent. So I think the Bucks, but I do think at the same time the Bucks will work with Giannis, to see where he wants to go, and they're kind of lean towards those teams, see what package they can work, and they'll go from there. Now I do think that it's two teams that will probably put together their best packages and probably where Giannis lands. Now you got, I will say that there is teams like, the Knicks and the Wolves, and we'll get into those teams, but I don't think they have realistic chances compared to the Heat and the Warriors. Now I know people are going to be like, oh my God, the Warriors are going to start another dynasty and it's going to be like KD Warriors all over again. The NBA is ruined, blah, 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 blah. The reality is I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen for many reasons. One of them being because the KD Warriors were scratch that, excuse me. They were the best team constructing in NBA history. I know people will say, oh, the 7-3-9 team, like they had a better record. And yes, they had a better record, but talent-wise, top to bottom, that KD Warriors team was the best team in NBA history. I don't care about Chicago Bulls. I don't care about all that bullshit. I don't care about none of that. That was the best team, top to bottom, talent-wise. There's no debate about it. So, now with that being said, like, I'm pretty sure it's come out. Don't quote me on this, but pretty sure players have come out. If not Draymond Green, it was Kevin Durant, said like they didn't really necessarily have to give their 100%. I'm pretty sure they were skipping practices. There's a viral video of Klay Thompson chilling, courtside during pregame with his headphones in, flip flops. KD was getting some shots up, bullshit, and Draymond Green was play fighting with a teammate. So that team, they didn't necessarily have to try. They could probably skip practice. They go out till 5 a.m., sleep till 10, and then probably go to the game and be perfectly fine and still win by 20. You know what I'm saying? That's how good they were. That's how good they were. I think the difference with Giannis going there is that I think they'll have to play 100% every night. The West is competitive. It's very competitive. Anybody can win there. Anybody who makes it into the playoffs can win out the West, more than likely. You got the Rockets. You got the Nuggets. You got the OKC. You got the Wolves. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot of talent out there. And I don't think if Giannis is to go there, because realistically, it'll probably be a package of Jimmy Butler, Kuminga, Pods, 3 first-round picks, and 2 swaps. So I don't think that makes them some crazy overpowered, team. I do think it fits very well. I think it works great for Giannis and Steph. I think Giannis and Draymond will pair perfectly defensively. So I think it'll be a great fit. It'll be a great team, and it'll rejuvenate the Warriors for sure. Now, I don't think it'll be a super team. I know people will be like, oh, it's Giannis and Steph Curry. It's easily. No, it's not. It's not. Because you don't got the prime Clay. You don't got the prime Draymond Green. Steph Curry is turning 38 this year. Draymond Green is he's definitely in his higher 30s. I'm not necessarily sure his exact age, but these guys are older now. There's no Klay Thompson. Like I said, you're getting older. So I don't think it's a super team. I think these guys will have to go out 100% every night and try their absolute hardest to compete. I don't think it'll be a bullshit and, they could just lollygag and kind of get away with things like that. I don't think that's a reality, and I don't think that's what's going to happen. I do think that they will have to go out every night and give it their all. Now, kind of moving on to another team is, the Heat, like I said. Now, the Warriors, they'll give up the 3 first-round picks, the 2 swaps. Steph Curry is turning 38, so I think once he's gone, I think those picks will become more valuable, the ones that they own. I think, the Warriors will get a little worse, so the picks will become more valuable. Now, the Heat package, on the other hand, they can offer Khalil Ware, Tyler Hero, and boatload of first-round picks because they own all of their picks. They have 5, 6, 7, 8 first-round picks. You know what I'm saying? So they have a lot of picks they can offer. Now, the realistically probably offer 4 to 5 first-round picks, Khalil Ware or Tyler Hero. Now, Khalil Ware and Tyler Hero, we both know what they can do. Tyler Hero specifically, he's easily a 20, 25 point per game scorer. Khalil Ware, when he's starting, he's been amazing. I'm not necessarily sure what's going on with him and Eric Spoelstra, but, Khalil Ware's talent is undeniable. Whatever the reason is that he fell out the rotation, or he's in and out the rotation, minutes are inconsistent, whatever that case may be. It has to be some locker room shit, or some him and Eric Spoelstra don't get together, get together well, or get along together. Excuse me. I think Khalil Ware is a crazy talent. Plays the center position. He's shooting the three ball. Can easily crazy lob threat. Easily could put up 20 and 12 every night. Realistically. So I think that a package might be. It's not even might. It is better than the Warriors package of Jimmy Butler, Kuminga, and Pods. Pajimski. But because with Jimmy Butler, he is coming off the torn ACL. He is older. I'm pretty sure he's 36, something like that. Pajemski hasn't panned out to be the best. He's been playing decent, but he hasn't been great or, extremely, good. Then you got Kuminga, who's pretty interesting. I think he's a very, very, very good talent. I think he's easily a 15 to 20 point per game scorer. Not necessarily sure, why he's fell out the rotation and Steve Kerr doesn't play him. Once again, same thing with Ware, probably some locker room stuff, whatever the case may be. I'm not here to speculate. I don't want to paint narratives, whatever the case may be. I think Kuminga's probably has the most upside in that pack in the Warriors package, and then you got the 3 first-round picks that they own, and then the 2 swaps. Now, is that as appealing as a Heat package? I don't think so. I think the Heat have easily the best package to present to the Bucks. You got the 2 players, you got 5 first-round picks that they own. So I don't think you get a better package than that. Now, people will say like the Knicks. Giannis is going to the Knicks. He's a Knick. I don't think that's the reality. I don't think that's gonna happen. It sounds good. Knicks fans have these dreams about all these superstar players coming to them over the past couple of years. Obviously got the Zions, KDs, Kyries, whatever the case may be. With Giannis, I don't think it's true. For 2 big reasons. One, because they don't own any of their picks. They don't. I'm pretty sure the Brooklyn Nets own most of their picks. They don't have a lot of first-round picks to offer. So 2, to obtain these picks, okay, yeah, you can just go trade for some picks. To trade for the picks that you would need to put a package together for Giannis, for one, you would have to trade Cat. Cat is for sure going to be gone in that package to the Bucks, right? Okay, so boom, Cat is already gone. Like Cat is in the package, right? Let's subtract him out. Now you need picks, right? Okay, so you're going to have to either trade Mikal Bridges or OG Anunoby for Giannis. I mean, no, not for Giannis, excuse me, for picks. Now, Mikal Bridges has been inconsistent. He hasn't been the best. He has put up great games this year. But I've been seeing Knicks fans want him gone, but I don't think they want OG Anunoby gone either. So it's like, okay, say you do trade Mikal Bridges, you get a certain amount of picks. Let's say 4, you get 3 or 4 picks, right, for Mikal Bridges. Now, Mikal Bridges is gone, and Cat is gone, and then you did get some picks, right? But no, they have to go in the package for Giannis. So the picks you got, Mikal Bridges and Cat are gone, and you get Giannis, okay? And that's not even a guarantee to get Giannis. You know what I'm saying? That's just the package you have to put together to present to the Bucks. So it's like, is it worth it? I don't think so. You're getting rid of Mikal, possibly another, even a young player to get maybe, package with Mikal or to another team. I don't think it's worth it. I don't think you get rid of OG. I don't think you get rid of Mikal. I do think you can move on from Cat, but I don't think you should move on, from other guys to get picks up 10 yards. I think you can move Cat for somebody else, but if you want to move Cat, but I don't think the Knicks really need to do that. I think that they have a great roster. They have a great coach. I think that they just need to win games. It's as simple as that. I know it sounds easier said than done, but I think that roster is talented enough and coached well enough to win, the East, especially in the East where you got a lot of teams that are banged up. You got no Jason Tatum, no Hallie, so I think that they have a real chance of winning in the East. They just have to win the games. That's just that's just the reality of it. I don't think you trade away Mikal or OG, for picks to get a Giannis. And then you got to trade away Cat as well. I know people say Cat's defense has been terrible. Like, have you watched any Knicks game? Yes, I have. Cat defense has been pretty bad, but Cat is also probably the best shooting big we've ever seen, ever in the history of the game. So I'm gonna say Dirk, okay, cool, but top two, wherever you want to place him, one or two. That's what Cat is. So I think that you have the talent to win, especially in the East. Now, if the Knicks were in the West, we'd be having a completely different conversation. But they're in the East, which is pretty wide open right now. So I think, you know, I don't think you should move on from two or more players for Giannis. Would the pairing be nice? Jalen Brunson and Giannis, amazing. Yes, pick and roll would be amazing, but I don't think it's worth it. Now, another team that's been in the mix is the Wolves, the Timberwolves. Excuse me. I do think the Wolves pairing Anthony Edwards with Giannis would be amazing. I think the what they could achieve is limitless. Now, what it would take to obtain Giannis, I don't think it's worth it either. Because the reality is, you have to trade a Nas Reed, or you have to trade in Jaden McDaniels, who's been having his best offensive year. We know what his defense is. Easily one of the best defenders in the NBA. Nas Reed got the extension this past year because he's been amazing backup big. I think he could easily start on any team in the league. I think he could start on that Wolves team, honestly, but Rudy's defense is just too elite, to put him on the bench. Now, I do think the Wolves should not trade for Giannis. A package of theirs, would be like a 2026, a 2028, a 2030, and a 2032, plus one of those young talents that you have, Jaden or Nas. Now, if you could package picks with like a Julius Randle, I would do that in a heartbeat. I'd be spamming the Bucks phone. But I don't think they're gonna trade Julius Randle. I think that they like him. I think they like what Julius Randle could bring. And me personally, I'm not the biggest Julius Randle fan, but I understand what he does for the Wolves. He's one of their ball handlers. He can rebound. He can score. He's a shot creator. So Julius Randle does bring them a lot of things that people may not necessarily see or understand what he brings or why they're holding on to him. But I understand that. But I don't think you move on from Nas or Jaden. But if you could move Julius Randle plus those picks, I would do it in a heartbeat. And keep Nas and Jaden, I would do it without even thinking. But I don't think the Wolves want to trade Julius Randle, and I don't think they should trade Nas or Jaden McDaniels, because I think with the roster they have now, if they're healthy and they're competing at their 100% best, I think they could beat anybody in the West. Now, I'm not saying they're certainly 100% going to beat anybody in the West, but I think they have the talent. And like I said, kind of about the Knicks, it's kind of the same thing. They have the talent, they have the coach. I think if they're healthy, they can compete with anybody in the West. OKC, Denver, whoever. I think they can compete 100%. They've been playing great basketball. Like I said, Jaden McDaniels has been, having his best offensive year. We know his defense can bring. Nas Reed, like they have the talent. They have a really good team, and they've been playing great basketball as of lately, specifically. So I think you stay with that team. You could possibly make a smaller trade for like a Kobe White for like a guard, or an AO or Disumo or his teammate, in the Chicago Bulls. I may be pronouncing that wrong, excuse me. But other than that, I don't think you should move those young talents for Giannis. It could, pan out to be something great, but I don't think it's worth the risk. Now, kind of shifting on to another team that could be in the Giannis trade talks, but people say they should panic. The Oklahoma City Thunder. People say, oh, the OKC hasn't been playing their best. I think what's going on with OKC is that they set the bar so high with the perfect rebuild. They won the championship with the young guys. They paid the young guys. They set the bar so high that people expect nothing less of that. Like nothing less. They expect you either get better or, kind of stay where you were at. So I think when they lose these games, people start to overreact. People start to think like, "Oh my God, OKC dynasty is not a thing. It's falling off." Like when you look at the Thunder, the reality of it is they have the best team. They have the best team in the league. They have the best record in the league. They're 5 games up on the second seed in the West. So when people say, "Oh yeah, they need to panic. They need to make a trade," They should go for Giannis, like, because we know the picks that OKC have. They have plenty of first round picks. Like that, yes, they could make probably the best package for Giannis. The reason I didn't mention them in the rumors for Giannis is because I don't think that they should, and I don't think they're even in talks to do it. They may be, but I don't think it's in your best favor. It's in your best, to do it. Like I don't think OKC needs to do it. I think they're perfectly fine how they are. Yes, in their last 15 games, they're 9-6 with some bad losses, to the Pacers or to the Heat. But I don't think you overreact to those. I think you learn and adjust from those, but I don't think you overreact to them to the point where you have to make a blockbuster trade. Because you got to remember that Caruso, Jay Mitchell, who's been having a career year, and J Dub, they're all been out in and out games, missing. J Dub's been out for a while. Caruso and Jay Mitchell missing the last 5 or 6, 7 games. So I think that you have to factor that in as well. They've been dealing with injuries since the season started. Like J Dub didn't play for the first 20 games or something like that. So, when he came back, he was still in the mix of, getting back from injury and, failing, trying to get his field back. People were overreacting to that. J Dub has fallen off, and J Dub, they shouldn't have paid him. And J Dub is an amazing talent. He's deserved the paycheck he got. He deserves the contract. He deserves the recognition he got last year. I just think that when he does come back, he's fully healthy. I think that either him or Chet need to come together to themselves and kind of figure out who's going to be the second option to SGA, because we all know what SGA can bring. He's easily a walking 30+ point per game. That's without a question. Now, moving on to that, moving on from SGA, they need a second option, a reliable second option. It's nice where Chet can go get you 20+ points per game, 12 boards, and you're like, oh my God, this guy's the one, because his defense is, there's no need to speak on. He's easily one of the best rim protectors in the league, easily one of the best help defenders in the league. So, his defense doesn't really need to be talked on, but his offense, he can go out there and get you 20, 25 points per game. You know what I'm saying? Maybe not 25 points per game, but he can easily get you 20+ points per game. So I think that him or J-Dub needs to solidify, who's going to be the second option. Who's going to be the guy when SGA comes out the game? Or even when SGA is in the game where he's being doubled and, trapped, who's going to be the guy? Because when J-Dub, like I said, J-Dub did come back from injury, he's still trying to get the feel, so you can't really judge it off of that. But even last season, it's kind of like they don't really know who's the second option. I think J-Dub kind of leaned into it more than Chet, but I think Chet has the ability to do it. I think it's just more so their coach has to figure out who is going to be the second guy, who is going to be the guy I can lean on. Okay, yes, take over this, when SGA goes out. Let me run some sets for you, whatever the case may be. Because Chet has the ability to shoot over anybody. I feel like J-Dub has the ability to, create his shot and get downhill by will almost. So they just have to figure out who's going to do what, who's going to be what, and whose position, is going to be to step up to be that second guy, because they have the talent, they have the depth, they have the defense. OKC still checks all the boxes you want. I think the only thing that they honestly lack is their jump shooting. Their jump shooting hasn't been the best. They are missing open shots, contested shots. They're missing every type of shot you can think of. Their jump shooting has been terrible. But that's something you can fix. Because we've seen what they can do when they're hot. When, guys like Isaiah Joe or Jay Mitchell, all those guys get hot. I think that's a very, very small fix. I think you could easily, once you get your jump shooting together, they're still the same OKC. Because even you can say this is what mind boggles me. If people say oh yeah, they've fallen off, but they look bad. Them looking bad is still the best record in the NBA, and it's still the best team in the NBA. So what does that say about them as a team? Why am I moving on from them if in our rough patch, our bad patch, we are still the best team in the league? Why am I even moving anything? Every team is going to go through rough patches, no matter what. That's the reality of the NBA and sports in general. Teams are going to go through rough patches. You just have to get past it. They're once their jump shooting clicks again, they're easily winning by 15, 20 points per game again. And I think it's because once they went on that little run in the beginning of the year when they were about to, break the record for, Golden State record, or not about to break it, but they were on pace to break the record. I think that's when people kind of started to freak out. And the thing I always said is with the greatness comes haters. Just look at LeBron James. He's been great his whole career. He's been nothing but hated since he was 18 years old. You know what I'm saying? So it's that's just what it is with OKC. They're one of the best teams in the NBA, if not the best. In my opinion, they are still the best team in the league. Coming off a chip, they had the perfect rebuild. They rebuilt with young guys. They had some bad years, and now they won the ring, and they're extremely dominant. You're going to be hated. You did it the right way. You've been great. They have great players. SGA is probably one of the most hated players in the NBA right now, because when you're great, negativity attracts to you. That's just what it is. It's how it's always been in any sport. Negativity especially nowadays, negativity brings the clicks. They bring the the viral clips, and that's what media gets paid off, is pushing these narratives and pushing these negativity. You know what I'm saying? So OKC, they're at the top of the helm right now. They're the guys who has to be beaten. You have to go through OKC in the West. You have to. You want to get a ring, you have to go through OKC, and people know that, and people hate that. So I think OKC is perfectly fine where they're at. They just have to get through this rough patch of jump shooting. Yes, you could probably move like I Heart. That's probably the only move I would think about. Only because the CBA rules and things of that nature. I would probably move I Heart. I would call Miami Heat up, see if I can get a Khalil Ware. What's the package? Because they had the picks. You know what I'm saying? They have the young talent. I would move I Heart for him. Excuse me. So that's the only thing. That's the only possible move I would think about if I'm OKC, or even a Lou Dort, moving on from him. But his defense is still at an all-time high. Still one of the best defenders. I know people will say, "Oh, he's a hack. Oh, he's a dirty player." I'm not here to paint those narratives. You can go out there and look and see what you want. Assess what you shall from watching Lou Dort. But reality is, he's still one of the best defenders in the league. So I do think if you can move on for him for the right package, I would. But other than iHeart and Lou Dort, I think the boys are fine. I do think they should move from iHeart because his offense is a little stagnant. He lacks things that the OKC needs in their kind of the pace they run. Because a lot of the playoff games last year, he either didn't play or he played very, very limited minutes. So it's like, if you could replace that with a Khalil Ware, I think that would be an extreme improvement. But I'm not thinking about a Giannis or anything like any blockbuster trade like that. I think that OKC, they're perfectly fine where they're at. Like I said, at their worst, they're still the best team in the league. They still have the best record in the league by 5 games, and so why am I moving on from anything? It doesn't make sense. Now moving on to something else, I want to talk about the MVP race. Very interesting, because you got Luka rising up the ranks. You got Jokic still in the top 3. Let me just give you my top 3. My top 3 will be SGA at 1, Luka at 2, and then Jokic at 3. Now, the reason I feel like the first thing people are gonna ask me is, or say is, "Oh, why is Jokic in your top 3?" Excuse me. I have Jokic in my top 3 because he's still first in rebounds at 12.2 per game. Still first in assists at 11 on the dot, 11 assists a game, and he's third in scoring in the league at 29.6 points per game. So, and at the time we are recording this January 30th, it's been reported that he's coming back to play tonight. So I think he's picking up right where he's left off. I think he's going to pick up right where they left off. 22 and 10 when he plays this year. So I think he didn't miss the amount of games, to miss a threshold to still be MVP. So I think, you can't count him out. Like, Jokic is Jokic. We know what he can do. He's averaging a 30-point triple-double with 12 rebounds and 11 assists a game. So it's like, why are we counting him out? Yes, if guys have been great. Cade Cunningham has been great. Jaylen Brown has been amazing. Better than some people think he would have been this year. Tyrese Maxey, my personal favorite, I think he should get more love in MVP race. But I don't think he should get it over these 3 guys. The SGA, I think people would say, like, kind of going back to OKC, people would say, "Oh, yeah, they have the depth. Yeah, they have this." But like I was saying about OKC, they haven't been shooting the ball well outside of SGA. SGA, the offensive, I'm not going to say load. Well, yeah, the offensive load that he burdens for that team is crazy. Off of his, just not even speaking on his scoring or his just, that, but like his gravity alone, what he can do and create for other players is crazy. Like, I don't think people really account that for SGA or just a lot of players in general. Like his gravity creates for these players. Like, it creates way better looks for Chet, or these guys like Isaiah Joe when he comes in, or J Dub when he was playing, at their best. I think his gravity is probably the best in the league right now. So I think because people say he's a foul baiter, so you have to kind of like trap him before he can get to his spots. Because if he gets to his spots, it's over. Like I'm when I watch SGA, I think if he gets to his spot at mid range pull up, like it's going in every time where he's getting fouled. That's just my mindset. I don't think he's missing. Like some will say, oh yeah, he dick riding or whatever the case may be, but that's just the reality. If you watch SGA, you probably think the same thing. Like if he gets his spots, it's over. And I'm pretty sure it'll be NBA players in the league who will tell you that. If he gets his spot, you feel like it's over. So SGA, he's kind of like one of those guys who's unspoken. Like, like you don't really have to say too much. You know what he's bringing. He's averaging 32 points per game. So I think what he does is like his talent and his scoring. I think that's you don't have to. We all know what it is. But I think the thing that people do need to recognize more is kind of the offensive load that he carries. You know what I'm saying? It starts with him. Like yes, that team is their depth is crazy. Yes, they're still the best team in the league and they're built perfectly. But it starts with SGA. It starts with SGA. If SGA isn't SGA, then that team isn't what it is unless Chet or J Dub having a career night or a Jay Mitchell, whatever the case may be. But SGA is the engine. He keeps that team running and he keeps that team, where they are. Now moving on to Luka Doncic. He's a very interesting one as well. Because the thing with Luka is his defense. His effort has been the focal point of a lot of scrutiny over the past couple of weeks. And granted, it's very, very, very warranted. I'm not saying he should be excused or anything like that because he shouldn't be. He shouldn't be. Like he's been playing terrible defense. His effort has been garbage. So, but his off, like I said in my last episode, or my first episode, excuse me. Like I feel like the offense has become underrated in the league. So I think what Luka does on the offensive end is ridiculous. If I pull up his stats, he's averaging 33.6 points per game, 7.7 rebounds per game, and 8.7 assists per game. So his offensive load is we know what Luka can do offensively. Now, yes, his defense has been bad. Yes, his effort has been even worse. But I think if the Lakers keep making a push, if they win some more games and they start climbing up the ranks, because they're floating in between 4 and a 6 seed. I think right now if they lose another game, they'll fall into the play-in. But if they go on like a 2 or 3 game win streak, they'll bump up to the 4 seed. That's if like Minnesota loses. They're flowing. Like they're stuck. I'm not gonna say they're 6 seed right now. Like yes, they obviously are, but they're flowing between 4 and 6. So I think if they make a push, they make a real push, and they, God forbid, I think if Jokic misses a couple games and, misses a threshold to, win awards, I think Luka is going to be the 1 and 2. It's going to stay between him and SGA. And SGA is pretty much, for the most part, been very consistent, in what he does and what he brings every night. But I think if he has a couple bad games, or, he has a bad stretch, while Luka is still putting up the numbers he does, I think he could possibly take that spot from SGA. Now, with Jokic coming back tonight, that the reality is that may not be true. I think Jokic is going to pick up right where he left off. So I think in the next couple of updated rankings, for MVP, depending on how Jokic plays, I think he'll take over Luka for the 2 spot. But I don't think necessarily, personally, I don't think he should, because I think if Luka keeps playing how he does, Lakers win, start winning games, they don't want a losing streak or anything like that. I think Luka should stay right where he's at, even if Jokic picks up where he was at. Because Luka's leading the league in scoring while almost putting up, close to a triple-double. Jokic is putting up 30-point triple-double, which is insane. I'm not trying to downplay it at all. But Luka has been doing this while Jokic has been out. So I do think I wouldn't be mad if Jokic takes his spot once he picks up where he left off, and the case may be. But I do think I would definitely understand if Luka stays at that 2 spot, even if Jokic picks up But if Jokic starts doing the crazy 30-point, 40-point triple doubles and stuff like that, you can't be mad at it. Like it's Jokic, you know what I'm saying? But to move on from the MVP race, you got the guys, obviously below them, the Jalen Browns, Kate Cunningham's, Tyrese Maxey. I think those are all fluctuating every week. So I think those are kind of harder to, cipher who's what seeding, what ranking in an MVP race. But those definitely my top three: SGA, Luka, and then Jokic. But moving on from the MVP race, I want to talk about the East, the Eastern Conference in the NBA. Like I kind of touched on it earlier, um, it's very interesting because it's wide open as it's been in since I can remember. You got teams like Celtics who have been playing amazing basketball. Led by Jalen Brown. Um, then you got the Orlando Magic. They haven't been playing their best basketball, but they're still always going to be a threat. Their defense is amazing. Anthony Black has been playing out of his mind, having his breakout year. Paulo Banchero is crazy talent. We know what he can bring every night. You got Franz Wagner who's on the bench. He's been hurt in and out the lineup, but that team at their 100% best, one of the best defensive teams in the league, and I think the only flaw with them is I think Paulo and Franz are still kind of trying to like figure out how to like play off of each other and play with each other. So, but I think they can beat anybody in the East. They can compete with anybody in the East. You got Philly, who has been playing great basketball. VJ Edgecombe playing like a 6-7 year vet. Tyrese Maxey has been amazing. Joel Embiid, man. Joel Embiid and Paul George have been playing out of their minds. Paul George just a couple games ago had kind of like a vintage Paul George game, some would say. He's been playing great. But Embiid is the biggest story to me with Philly. He's been healthy. He's been looking as best as he ever has. Caught it live. He's been jumping. His lateral movement is still a little iffy on defense, but he's looked like his MVP self. So Philly healthy is personally would be my pick to come out the East. Not just because that's one of my favorite teams, my favorite team, but I think like with the depth and the roster we have, that you can't deny that what the 76ers have done and what they can do at 100% healthy. Now granted, I will say, banking on Embiid and PG's health is a little wild, but if they can stay healthy and we go into the playoffs healthy, I think Philly can compete with anybody, and that's without a doubt. Moving on, you got who else is out there? You got the Toronto Raptors. The Toronto Raptors. I think they are probably the most surprising to people. Now, when Brandon Ingram got traded there, I thought, a lot of people thought it wouldn't work. I thought it was a perfect match. I feel like he was exactly what they needed. They needed a shot creator. They needed somebody who can go get buckets. Flow off of Scotty. IQ. I think them boys are one of the best constructed teams out east, and I think they're a sleeper team. I know some people say, "Oh, they don't have the best record," but I don't think if they get into the play, well, when they get into the playoffs, excuse me, I think that they are definitely a team who could compete with anybody. Like I think there may be some other teams with better rosters for sure, but I think that team is probably the sleeper team, not even just in the East, but just in the NBA in general. I don't think they're getting enough love. Scotty Barnes is easily one of my favorite players since he came into the league. His defense is suffocating. It's one of the I don't think he gets enough love as a defender in the NBA. Like he can guard 1 through 5. Like and he's going to give like he's been playing the center past couple of games, recently this year. He's been playing amazing. His defense has been out of the world. His offense is, great, but his rebounding is crazy. So I think Scotty Barnes, he needs more love, not just even as a defender, as a player. I think Scotty Barnes has been amazing. Brandon Ingram, I feel like he's found a home in Toronto. I'm so glad he got out of New Orleans. I don't think that was definitely not the place for him. I think him being on Toronto is nice. It's good for them. I feel like he's found a home there, and that's definitely my sleeper team out east. I think they can definitely make it out and beat anybody there. I'm pretty sure reports came out that Jason Tatum he's going to evaluate things with the Boston Celtics, and he's not going to return this year, which I think is a great option. For him, I don't think he should return this year. Yes, the Celtics are competing and things are going better than probably they imagined as a franchise, but I don't think he should rush back this year. even if they make it far into the playoff conference championship finals, whatever the case may be. I think Jason Tatum should rest, come back fully healthy and better than ever next year. Now, moving down to the playing teams, you got the Hawks, you got you got the Bulls and and teams like that. I think that they can, make a little noise, but I wouldn't necessarily call them contenders, serious contenders like a Celtics, Philly, New York Knicks, teams like that. Now I did it's funny because I kind of skipped over the Knicks because they're weird because I don't know. It's hard to determine what they're gonna do. With this roster they have now, I think that, like I said before, they just have to win games. They have to win games. That roster is just like I was talking about the Wolves. They have the talent, they have the coach, they just have to win games. It's on them to be consistent and win those games. I think that they can, for sure, with the roster they have now. Granted, I'm recording this on January 30th. They haven't made any big trades. They still have Cat and all that. I think that they can compete with anybody. That roster, the talent on that roster is crazy, especially on paper. And it's not like they've been terrible. They've been amazing. So I think that they just have to win the games, and once they get into the playoffs, it's anybody's conference to take. Knicks are definitely up there, but me personally, I'm not too high on them because of Cat, and other situations with the problems with them. Not want to say problems, but I'm not the biggest fan of Jalen Brunson. I don't like how he kind of it's not even that me being a fan of him. I just think that his play style isn't sustainable to winning basketball, at the highest level. Now, granted, my opinion aside, they like I previously stated before that they can for sure compete with anybody, and in the NBA, anybody can beat anybody. So I'm not gonna count them out, but they're not highest on my level. My ranking for coming out the East. Obviously, the Bucks are getting ready to move on from Giannis. Now, if they don't move on from him this deadline, they're definitely moving on from the offseason. So even if they do keep him in this at this deadline, which I highly, highly, highly doubt, I don't have them being contenders at all because, like I said, that roster is terribly constructed. Giannis doesn't want to play there. He's hurt at the moment, so I don't have no faith in them. My highest would obviously be the Celtics, Magic, 76ers, and Knicks. Those are probably my four biggest. I said two, excuse me. My four biggest picks out east, and I think it is very open. I feel like any of those teams can win. Now, if I had to pick a team, if I had to pick a team to come out right now out the East, it would probably be Philly. And that's not because it's my team or, I'm a fan of them or whatever the case may be. I think that they have the best chance at the moment of me recording, no injuries, God forbid, things of that nature. I think that they have the best chance to come out of the East. Celtics, like I said, they have been playing great basketball, but I don't think, and they can compete with anybody, don't get me wrong, but I don't think that Jalen Brunson, when it comes playoff time, and Jalen Brunson, Jalen Brown, come playoff time, I think defenses will shift, towards shut. If you get beat by Derek White or you get beat by, Peyton Pritchard, I think that teams will live with that. But teams will not live with Jalen Brown going out there getting 30, 35 a game in the playoffs. I think teams will trap them and bank on Derek White or those guys beating them. And Derek White hasn't looked as good as he has in previous years, specifically or last year. I don't think he's been that good, or I'm not gonna say that good, but I don't think he's been that consistent. I think he's kind of used to being that third option, fourth option kind of guy. So him being the second option is kind of a little, a little different for him. So he's still adjusting. But I think come playoff time, I don't, like I said, granted, I'm gonna keep saying it, but anybody can beat anybody, and all those teams can compete. Like it's more open than it's ever been. But when it comes down to a playoff time, playoff defenses, I don't think the Celtics can necessarily come out because I think Jalen Brunson, or excuse me, I keep saying Jalen Brunson, Jalen Brown he'll be focused, he'll be the focal point of defenses more. So I think that will change. With the Knicks, same thing. Jalen Brunson, I think if you kind of contain him and keep him how he is with the roster they have now, it's not a Giannis trade, factor in a Giannis trade or anything like that. But with the roster they have now, if you can contain Jalen Brunson, which is very extremely hard, easier said than done. If you can contain him, then you kind of win. If you lose to like a Michael Bridges or something like that, I think you kind of live with that. But if you with Cat's defense, even though I did say yes, they can compete with him and everything like that. I think his defense is definitely something you have to factor in, no matter what. That's the reality of it. You can't ignore Cat's defense. Hasn't been the greatest. So I think with that, him at the center, it, I don't really have faith in them. Plus, you factor in Jalen Brunson's play style. I don't think it's sustainable to winning championship basketball. Now, granted, this is all just my opinion. I could be wrong, but I don't think that's going to get them winning basketball or championships. Um, Now the Magic are very interesting because I think that they have everything to win. I think they can win. I think they can be, the team to come out the East. But will they? Is because like the question is, will they? And I think that's the only question because of Franz and Paulo's kind of pairing together. I think people, not even people. I think like their pairing is still a question. I think it's still in doubt. Me personally, I think they'll be fine. I think they'll, it just takes time and chemistry, but I do think that is an issue. Like when they're on the court together, and the offense kind of looks a little clunky. Some may say it's because they need a point guard, or Jalen Suggs is a traditional point guard, or Anthony Black, whatever the case may be. When Paolo's out, though, that team looks completely different. Some will say it's because of Paolo, and he doesn't necessarily know who he is as a player. If he wants to lean towards more like being a LeBron or being like a Carmelo with the jump shooting, his jump shooting has been god awful this year. Some of the worst in NBA history, let alone in the NBA this year. So I think that it kind of does fall more on Paolo than him and Franz, but I think they kind of have to figure it out, how they pair with each other. Um, then you got Philly, Philly, I think with the roster they have right now and them being healthy, I don't necessarily see any flaws. I think that they could for sure get better, at the wing position. Kelly Oubre, he's been good. He's been great. I think some backup wing depth, because Justin Edwards and he's been too shaky. Same thing with Barlow. I think that they could probably improve there, but overall, right now, this roster is very, very good. I think the biggest problem with Philly is the third quarter adjustments. Like Philly will play great quarter one, quarter two, come out at halftime and be absolutely terrible. I'm pretty sure they're bottom in third quarter everything. Like third quarter, they lose the lead. They go into the fourth quarter, the trailing. Like for example, last night against the Kings, had a terrible third quarter. Went to the fourth quarter, down 8, down 10. Had to make a fourth quarter push. Then they have a terrible third quarter. Then they have an amazing fourth quarter. That's not sustainable basketball. That is the biggest thing about Philly. It's not sustainable basketball to have a terrible third quarter and then just bank on having an amazing fourth quarter. It's just not. It's not what you should do. I think a lot of that is on Nick Nurse. I think Nick Nurse should eventually be gone. If not this year, then definitely in the offseason. But I think that's the biggest thing with Philly. They have to capitalize on these third quarters. They cannot be lackadaisical. They cannot, play down the competition because they almost lost to the Kings last night, and it was extremely close, or 2 nights ago, something like that. It was closer than it had to be. I'm not one of those guys who are going to say everybody should, Philly should have blown out the Kings. Like I said, anybody can beat anybody on any given night. So I'm not knocking the Kings, but it definitely shouldn't have been that close for Philly. So I do think that is the extreme point that Philly needs to address before the playoffs. Got a lot of time till the playoffs, but it still needs to be addressed, and it's a huge glaring issue, for Philly. But at the end of the day, they still are my pick to come out the East right now, but it is very open and it's anybody's conference to take. Now, with that being said, that does conclude the episode today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Covered a lot of things in today's episode. Something I do want to introduce though is I want you guys to comment under this video wherever you see it, TikTok, Instagram, wherever the case may be, YouTube. I want you guys to comment questions or topics you want me to cover. I'll pull them up. Whose comment it is. I can cover it if you want. Wherever the case may be, I'll pull it up. I'll talk about it, on the podcast. But I do want to add that into the podcast. I want to get more connected with you guys. I want you guys ideas. I want to bounce things, off of you guys, ideas, my ideas, pause. But yes, that is something I want to do for you guys. I thank everybody once again, for tuning into this, this podcast. I'm gonna get better with, my speaking and the equipment and everything. But this has been something I've always wanted to do, and I'm glad you guys, the support I've been getting is amazing, and I just want to say I'm very appreciative of it, and I couldn't be more thankful. Thank you guys for tuning in. Like, comment, subscribe, share, anything, all that's appreciated. Any type of support is appreciated from me. But I'm your host, Tyler. This has been the Outside Eye Podcast.
Can't believe she ain't know I was one of them ones that said you ain't know that. But it's cool cause I told her I ran out of love. I really don't care that I'm poppin'. I feel better when I'm going shopping. And to all of the homies, they